Welcome to Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast. Welcome to Real Estate of Mind, Leadership Edition. This is Andy Gutman on behalf of the Farbman Group. This morning I want to talk about ethics. And specifically, I was listening to a podcast the other day from a residential real estate broker. And in it, this broker was talking about ethics. And he posed a dilemma for a residential deal. He said, you have an owner of a piece of real estate that is trying to sell his property. And he's got two buyers that are interested in it. The first one wanted to buy the property at $165,000. And this owner had verbally agreed to the sale of that. After he agreed to it, the broker came back with a deal at $175,000. The owner said, I've got a real dilemma here. I agreed verbally to a deal with this one buyer at $165,000, and now I've got this offer at $175,000. Mr. Broker, what do I do? And the broker broke it down like this. He said, well, which one of these buyers do you think is more likely to close? And once you determine that, that's how you make the deal. You only base it on which one has the best chance to close. Now, in theory, I do believe that you should go down a path with a buyer, in whatever deal you're making, whatever industry you're in, with a buyer that you believe can close the deal. It makes perfect sense. It's the right thing to do. But the idea of the basis for your ethical decision being which one can close, I find completely inaccurate. The fact of the matter is that this seller went down a path with someone, made a verbal commitment to the deal. Did they sign the paperwork? No, so they are not legally obligated to the deal. A verbal agreement is not legally binding. But there's no new information that was provided to say, well, the first buyer came back and didn't show that he had the ability to close. There's nothing of that sort in this dilemma that was posed. So the ethical answer should have nothing to do with which one is able to now close. It should have to do with what he agreed to. People seem to have forgotten that ethics really has to do with being a person of your word. When you give your word, then you should be standing behind it. Now, that doesn't mean that situations don't go bad and you have to work your way out of it, but this wasn't one of those situations. This was someone teaching that ethics is finding the best deal for you. And ethics really has more to do with doing the right thing in the situation. So my leadership minute today says, if you make an agreement with someone, you should stand by it. If something goes wrong, you go to them and you say, this is what happened. Now, in this scenario, had the person come back and say, the seller had come back and said, well, you know what, we checked his credit at his, to show that he had the wherewithal, and he just didn't have it. He didn't have a lender in place. He didn't have the down payment. Something like that could sway you, because then he doesn't have the ability to close. He can't actually make that work. And that is a different story. But ethics never has anything to do with doing solely what's in your best interest at the detriment of the person you made a deal with. This is Andy Gutman for the Farbman Group, Real Estate of Mind, Leadership Moment. Join us next time for another wonderful edition of Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast.